to this video where we will explore Local-LLM through the example of Phi-3. Let's dive into how small, efficient language model like Phi-3 bring powerful AI capabilities to even the most resource-constrained environment like CPU or edge devices. Large language models or LLM are advanced neural network trained on vast amount of text data. These models can comprehend and generate human-like text based on the input they receive. Think of ChatGPT or Gemini as example. It is like chatting with a machine that has entire library worth of knowledge at its disposal. There are many LLM models in the tech world, such as those from OpenAI, ChatGPT, Gemini, Mistral. However, these models usually require substantial computational resources to run effectively. But coming to the Phi-3, which is developed by Microsoft, is a highly efficient and compact language model that rivals the performance of much larger models from OpenAI and Llama. Despite its smaller size, Phi-3 excels in language understanding and generation, making it perfect for application with limited computational resources. Its efficiency enables local deployment on devices like smartphone offering advanced AI capability without needing extensive hardware. To run the Phi-3 LLM model on a CPU or edge devices, you will need the following steps. First, Hugging Face tokens. How to access this link is given in the description. Second, Docker installed on your system. Third, the Postman for API testing. Now, let's go through the setup and code flow. So before jumping to the code flow, we will follow the first step where we have to generate the token in a Hugging Face. So click on this link and you will get the option to create a new token. Give the token name like test and then scroll down below, create token. After click, you will be able to access your Hugging Face token, copy that and save somewhere so that you can use it later while deploying the Docker. So now, after getting your Hugging Face token, come to the VS Code and we'll check first that if our Docker is installed properly or not. So we'll run the command sudo docker version, and since we are getting our Docker version, so it means the Docker had been installed perfectly. Now comes to the Docker file. So the Docker file, this which is going to help us to set up the environment and run the API into it. So since the code is in Python, we have used the Python package for the Docker deployment along with the packages which will going to support. So like Hugging Face, and apart from that, we need the token which we will pass through the command line, and then the package, the model we are going to use is Phi-3 mini 4K instruct. So this is a kind of quantized model we are going to use so that it can effectively run into the CPU. So this model, which is quantized, and then we will pass the Python package again for running our app code, which will be in the app.py file. To support and run that, we have to install the requirement files as well as the necessary setup we have to do in a Docker file, and then we have to expose some ports which we are going to use for API testings and all. Now come to the Python code, which is app.py, and the packages which we have used fast API for API deployment and testing, and Llama package, which is we have used to read the Phi-3 LLM model, which we had already downloaded, and the code which is reading the model the Phi-3 model, and then we are defining certain parameters like the thread and then token. And since we are running into the CPU, the GPU layers will be the 0, and then the endpoint we have defined here, it's predict. So the code looks like this. Now, we had already set up our Docker file as well as Python code for the API. So we'll now go for the deployment into the Docker. First, we will again check if our Docker is have been installed or not. To do that, run the command sudo docker version. So, since we are getting the Docker version here, it means our Docker has been perfectly installed into the system. Now we'll check the images if any Docker image is already been built or not. To do that, run the command sudo docker images. So here we are not getting any image has been installed in the system. Now we will deploy our own Docker file which we had built. So I have already added the README file. You can follow the step from there also. So now to deploy the Docker file, we'll go first into the directory which is Docker. And since our Docker file into the Docker directory, now here after going into this directory, we'll run our build command. So sudo docker build, and then we have to pass our Hugging Face, the token we had generated, and then we have to define the tag name, and then click enter. And now after building the Docker file, we'll check again the images by the command sudo docker images. So now you can see here a repository with the name of chatbot API. It is showing. So our Docker is got successful Docker image got successful built here. Now to run the API and then further testing, we'll run the command to execute that Docker container. For that, the command is sudo docker run port. We have to define the port. So the outbound port is 4000, inbound port is 5000. I have defined here, and then Docker image name, and then enter. So after entering, depend on the system. Now it will start showing all the parameters, since we had used the logging also. So it is showing all the details before executing. Okay, so here we got our API link to do the further testing. And now, since we got our API URL, we'll do the further testing in Postman. So there is an extension in VS Code itself, where after click on new HTTP request, we will get the option to fill the our API URL HTTP colon slash localhost colon 4000 slash predict. So since this API we made it as a post, we will select that and then come to the body, where we have to first define, because since our body, the API body is the JSON form, and then in the README how exactly the JSON body looks. So you can just copy from here directly and paste here and ask your query. So like I will simply replace with this hi, how are you? and then click on the send button. So start executing, and depend on the processors and all. Here we got the response. So to see the response, come to the body part. So the telling the response, hello, I'm doing well. As an AI, I don't have feelings and all, etc. etc. So since you had seen, we had successfully set up all the Docker file or Python code, as well as we did our testings also. We have covered the basic of LLM, explored the efficient Phi-3 model, and walked through the setting it up on your local machine. With Phi-3, advanced AI is now within the reach even on devices with limited resources. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more insight content. See you in the next video.